Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my beloved brothers and sisters. Welcome to this gentle daily reminder.
You are not overthinking. Allah might be warning you. There are moments in life when Allah speaks to you without a single word. Moments so subtle that if you are not paying attention, you might miss them completely. They do not come as voices you can hear or signs you can touch, but as feelings that settle deep within your chest. And sometimes those moments are not about events or decisions, but about people, someone already in your life, someone who laughs with you, stands beside you, supports you, and perhaps even claims to care for you deeply. On the surface, everything appears right, yet beneath that surface, something begins to stir within you. Something quiet but persistent, something that refuses to be ignored, no matter how much you try to silence it. What you feel in those moments is not confusion without purpose. It is not baseless doubt. It is not your mind playing tricks on you. It is something far deeper, something placed within you by the one who created your heart and understands every unseen reality that you cannot yet perceive. Allah, in His infinite knowledge and mercy, sees what you cannot see, knows what you do not know, and protects you in ways you may never fully understand. And sometimes that protection does not come as a visible barrier or a clear warning from the outside world, but as a quiet unease within you, a feeling that gently unsettles your heart, even when everything around you appears calm. You may find yourself sitting with this person, listening to their words, watching their expressions, noticing how perfectly everything seems to align. They say the right things. They behave in ways that appear kind and sincere. There is no obvious fault you can point to, nothing you can clearly explain to someone else. And yet, inside you, something feels off. It is not loud enough to demand attention, but it is strong enough that you cannot completely ignore it. It lingers in your chest like a weight you cannot name. Your thoughts become crowded. Your peace begins to slip away, and a subtle tension replaces the calm you once felt. Then something remarkable happens when you step away from them. The heaviness begins to lift. Your breathing feels easier. Your mind becomes clearer, and a sense of relief washes over you, as though you have unknowingly set down a burden you did not realize you were carrying. That contrast, the unease in their presence and the peace in their absence, is not meaningless. It is not coincidence. It is a sign, a form of guidance that does not rely on words or explanations, but speaks directly to your soul. Human beings often search for proof before they allow themselves to believe something. They want clear evidence, visible actions, undeniable reasons. But not every truth is meant to be discovered through the eyes alone. The heart has its own way of perceiving, its own ability to sense what lies beneath appearances. It recognizes what the eyes cannot capture and what the mind cannot immediately process. And when Allah places a feeling within your heart repeatedly, gently but persistently, it is not something to dismiss lightly. There is a natural tendency to doubt yourself in these situations. You may tell yourself that you are overthinking, that you are being unfair, that you have no real reason to feel the way you do. You may even try to convince yourself to stay, to ignore the discomfort, to push past the unease in hopes that it will eventually fade. But the truth is, what is placed within your heart with consistency and depth is rarely without purpose. Allah does not guide you toward confusion, He guides you toward protection. Sometimes His protection is obvious and immediate, but other times it is gradual and quiet. Instead of removing someone from your life through conflict or betrayal, He allows a distance to grow within you, A discomfort that was not there before begins to expand. A connection that once felt easy starts to feel heavy. You begin to withdraw without fully understanding why. Conversations feel different. Silence feels louder. And slowly, without a dramatic turning point, you find yourself stepping back. This is not weakness. This is not irrational behavior. This is mercy unfolding in a way that shields you before harm reaches you. It is Allah giving you the chance to walk away without being broken first, to protect your heart before it is wounded, to choose distance before you are forced into it by pain. Peace is one of the greatest indicators placed within your soul. It is not merely the absence of problems or conflict, but a deep, steady calm that settles within you. It allows you to exist without tension, to speak without fear, to think without chaos, and to turn toward Allah without distraction. When you are around the right people, that peace grows stronger. Your heart feels open, your thoughts feel clear, and your connection to what is good becomes easier and more natural. But when someone is not right for you, even if they appear perfect to everyone else, that peace begins to fade. You may still smile, still engage, still continue the relationship outwardly, but inwardly something starts to close. Your laughter feels different, less genuine. Your mind feels unsettled. Your energy feels drained rather than uplifted. And even in moments of quiet, when you reflect on your interactions, you feel a sense of discomfort that you cannot fully explain. What makes this even more difficult is that others may not see what you feel. To them, this person may seem ideal, trustworthy, even admirable. They may not understand why you are pulling away or why you seem hesitant. But not every truth is meant to be visible to everyone. Allah does not show everything to everyone. Sometimes He chooses your heart specifically to carry a certain awareness, to feel something deeper that others cannot perceive, because He intends to protect you in a way that is personal and direct. Ignoring these feelings can lead to regret. There are countless people who look back on relationships and say they felt something was wrong from the very beginning. They remember the unease, the hesitation, the quiet warnings they chose to overlook. At the time, they needed proof. They needed something undeniable. And by the time that proof arrived, it came with pain, disappointment, or betrayal that could have been avoided. That initial feeling was not meaningless. It was the first layer of protection, the earliest sign that something was not aligned for them. But it was ignored in favor of certainty, and certainty often comes too late. There is a kind of wisdom in trusting what your heart consistently tells you, especially when it pulls you away from something rather than toward harm. It does not mean becoming suspicious of everyone or living in fear of hidden intentions. It means recognizing that your heart, when connected to Allah, is not empty or directionless. It is guided in ways that go beyond logic alone. Sometimes your heart will quietly remind you that not everything that appears good is truly good for you. That not every smile carries sincerity. That not every connection is meant to last. It may show you that someone's presence, while comforting on the surface, carries something beneath it that does not bring you closer to peace, to clarity, or to Allah. Walking away in those moments is not easy. It requires strength to step back without a clear explanation, to create distance without a visible reason, to trust a feeling that cannot be easily justified to others. It may leave you questioning yourself, wondering if you made the right choice, wondering if you should have stayed longer or tried harder. But you do not need to justify your decisions when they are rooted in protecting your heart. You do not need to wait for harm to validate your instincts. You do not need to remain in a place that quietly disturbs your peace simply because you cannot explain why it does. Allah understands what you cannot put into words. He sees what you cannot see. And when He places a barrier within your heart, even if it feels like uncertainty at first, it is often there to prevent something far heavier from entering your life. Protecting your heart is not an act of fear. It is an act of awareness. It is recognizing that your peace is valuable, that your inner calm is not something to be sacrificed lightly, and that not every connection, no matter how appealing it may seem, is meant to remain in your life. There is strength in listening to that quiet voice within you, in honoring the feelings that persist without force, in stepping away before you are pushed away by pain. And there is a deep form of trust in believing that when Allah guides your heart away from something, He is not taking something from you, but saving you from what could have taken far more. Do not feel even the slightest trace of embarrassment for protecting your peace. Do not allow guilt to creep into your heart for choosing distance over discomfort or clarity over confusion. And do not, under any circumstance, feel the need to apologize for listening to a voice that Allah Himself placed within you. That inner awareness, that quiet sensitivity, that ability to feel when something is not right, these are not flaws. They are gifts. They are signs that your heart is alive, connected, and being guided in ways that go beyond what the eyes can see and the mind can fully understand. The world around you will constantly try to reshape how you think. It will tell you that feelings are unreliable, that intuition is weak, that everything must be measured, proven, and justified before you act upon it. It will push you toward logic without balance, toward evidence without reflection, toward delay until certainty arrives. It will teach you to override what you feel inside in favor of what appears acceptable on the outside. But faith does not silence the heart, it refines it. Faith does not dismiss what you feel, it teaches you when and how to trust it, especially when it aligns with what Allah has promised. And one of the greatest promises Allah places within your life is peace. Not just comfort, not just ease in circumstances, but a deep, unshakable calm within your soul. A stillness that remains even when life is uncertain. A quiet strength that allows you to breathe without tension, to exist without constant inner conflict, to turn toward Allah without heaviness. That peace is not accidental. It is not random. It is a sign of alignment, a reflection of something being right for you, something being in harmony with your fitrah and your purpose. So, when that peace begins to disappear, it is not something small. It is not something to ignore or explain away. When you find that your chest feels tighter in someone's presence, that your thoughts become heavier after interacting with them, that your energy feels drained instead of uplifted, that your heart carries a subtle weight you cannot name. These are not meaningless experiences. These are signals. These are shifts that deserve your attention. There is a difference between ordinary emotional fluctuation and a consistent, repeating unease that lingers without clear cause. The latter carries depth. It carries purpose. It carries a message that is not meant to be silenced but understood. And when that feeling becomes tied to a specific person, when it grows stronger with every meeting, when it quietly intensifies instead of fading, it is asking you to pause, not in panic, not in fear, but in awareness. In that pause, there is a moment of honesty, a moment where you stop trying to rationalize everything and instead allow yourself to feel what is truly happening within you. A moment where you acknowledge that something is not sitting right, even if you cannot explain why. And in that moment, turning to Allah becomes essential, not with long, complicated words, but with sincerity, with a heart that admits its uncertainty and seeks clarity, with a quiet plea that says, Ya Allah, if this feeling is coming from you, help me understand it. If this is protection, make it easy for me to accept. If this is a warning, do not let me ignore it, because Allah's protection does not always arrive in ways that are obvious. It does not always come as something dramatic or undeniable. Often it comes in forms that require you to trust Him without full understanding. It comes in subtle shifts, in quiet discomforts, in small changes that gradually guide you away from something before it has the chance to harm you. Allah is Al-Latif, the subtle, the one whose wisdom operates in ways that are gentle, precise, and often hidden from immediate perception. That unease you feel may be the very thing standing between you and a situation that would have caused you deep pain. It may be the barrier that prevents betrayal before it reaches you. It may be the early signal that saves you from becoming emotionally entangled in something that would have taken years to untangle. It may be the quiet shield protecting your heart from damage you are not yet strong enough to carry. And even more importantly, it may be protecting your iman. Your iman is not something visible, yet it is the most valuable thing you possess. It is more precious than wealth, more enduring than relationships, more significant than any success this world can offer. It is your connection to Allah, your source of guidance, your anchor in times of difficulty, your light in moments of darkness. It is the very essence of your existence, the thread that ties your temporary life in this world to your eternal life in the hereafter. And yet, one of the most subtle ways it can be affected is through the people you allow close to you. Not all harm comes in the form of direct influence or open invitation away from Allah. In fact, the most dangerous influence is often the one that does not appear harmful at all. It comes disguised as companionship, as comfort, as shared laughter and easy conversation. It does not demand that you abandon your faith. It simply nudges you gently, slowly away from it. It begins with small shifts that feel insignificant, a delay in prayer that seems harmless in the moment, a slight decrease in focus during worship, a casual decision to prioritize something else over what once held deep importance in your heart. These changes do not feel alarming at first. They feel temporary, manageable, reversible. But over time, they accumulate. What was once a rare delay becomes a habit. What was once a strong connection becomes a distant one. What once brought you peace begins to feel like an effort. And slowly, without a clear turning point, you begin to drift, not in a way that shocks you, but in a way that quietly distances you from who you used to be. Shaitan does not rush this process. He does not need to. His strategy is patience. He understands that gradual change is more powerful than sudden collapse. Step by step, moment by moment, he creates distance until one day you look back and realize that the version of yourself you once were feels far away. And sometimes the person connected to that change is not intentionally harmful. They may genuinely care for you. They may want your happiness. They may believe they are helping you enjoy life, helping you feel less burdened, helping you relax. Their intentions may be sincere. Their feelings may be real. But intentions do not erase impact. A person can mean well and still lead you somewhere harmful. A connection can feel good and still carry consequences that slowly weaken your soul. Not every relationship that feels warm is beneficial. Not every bond that brings temporary comfort leads to lasting kindness. If someone's presence consistently makes you remember Allah less, If being around them leads you to delay what you once prioritized, if their influence makes what is wrong feel lighter, and what is right feel heavier, then something within that connection is affecting you in a way that cannot be ignored. Because your relationship with Allah is not just one aspect of your life, it is your life. It is the foundation upon which everything else stands. It is the source of your peace, your purpose, your direction. And anything that begins to weaken that connection, even subtly, even gradually, carries a loss that goes far beyond what is visible in the moment. Protecting that connection requires awareness. It requires the willingness to look beyond surface, level comfort, and recognize deeper impact. It requires honesty with yourself, even when that honesty is uncomfortable. It requires the strength to step back from something that feels good in the moment, but is quietly taking something far more valuable from you. This is not about becoming distant from everyone or suspicious of every relationship. It is about being conscious of what your heart is experiencing, of what your soul is absorbing, of what your connection to Allah is reflecting back to you. It is about understanding that not every presence in your life is neutral. Some bring you closer to light, while others slowly pull you toward darkness. And when you begin to feel that shift, when your peace starts to fade, when your heart starts to feel heavy, when your connection to Allah begins to weaken, recognizing it is not enough. Acting upon it becomes necessary. Because the longer you ignore it, the harder it becomes to return. The more you justify it, the more deeply it takes root. The more you silence that inner voice, the quieter it becomes until eventually it no longer speaks as clearly as it once did. But when you honor it, when you listen, when you take even a small step back in response to it, you are not losing something, you are preserving something far greater. You are protecting your peace. You are safeguarding your iman. You are choosing alignment over attachment, clarity over confusion, and truth over comfort. And in doing so, you are trusting that when Allah guides your heart away from something, He is not depriving you of goodness. He is redirecting you towards something better, something purer, something that will not cost you your peace, your faith, or your closeness to Him. Surah 63:9 carries a meaning that reaches far beyond what is mentioned on the surface. It speaks of wealth and children, but its warning is not confined to them alone. It is a message about anything, absolutely anything, that has the ability to distract your heart from Allah. Anything that slowly replaces remembrance with forgetfulness, sincerity with distraction, presence with distance. And sometimes, the greatest distraction does not come in the form of material things. It comes in the form of people. A single person can occupy your heart more deeply than wealth ever could. A companion can take more of your time, your thoughts, your emotional energy than any responsibility. Their voice can become so familiar, so constant, that it begins to echo louder in your life than the call to prayer. Not because it is stronger, but because you have allowed it to take that space. And this does not happen suddenly. It is not a sharp, obvious change. It is gradual, quiet, almost invisible. Time passes in a way that feels normal. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and everything seems to continue as usual. You still recognize yourself. You still believe you are in control. But beneath that surface, something begins to shift. Your prayers start to feel rushed, as if you are completing them rather than experiencing them. Your supplications begin to feel empty, like words spoken without the depth they once carried. The tears that once came naturally in moments of connection begin to disappear. That sweetness of faith, that deep emotional closeness to Allah starts to feel distant, almost like a memory rather than a present reality. Instead of addressing it immediately, you reassure yourself. You call it temporary. You tell yourself it is just a phase, something that will pass on its own. You promise yourself that you will fix it later, that you will return to how you used to be when things settle down. You convince yourself that you are still in control of your path. But the longer this continues, the more that distance becomes your new normal. Until one day, you pause long enough to realize that the version of you who once felt deeply connected, who once rushed toward what pleased Allah, now feels unfamiliar. Faith is not something that remains unchanged without effort. It is not something that can be placed aside and expected to stay the same. It is alive, and like anything alive, it requires care. It requires consistency, attention, protection. It needs to be nurtured through actions, through remembrance, through the environment you place yourself in. And one of the most powerful influences on that environment is the people you allow close to you. People are never neutral in your life. They are either strengthening your connection to Allah or weakening it, even if the change is subtle. When you spend time with those who remember Allah often, who speak in ways that remind you of what truly matters, who carry sincerity in their actions, your faith begins to grow almost effortlessly. You find yourself thinking more clearly, acting more intentionally, feeling more connected. Worship becomes lighter, not heavier. Goodness feels natural, not forced. But when you spend time with those who are distant from remembrance, who treat faith as something secondary or occasional, your heart begins to adjust to that environment. You do not notice it immediately. There is no sudden transformation, but slowly your priorities begin to shift. What once felt essential starts to feel optional. What once felt heavy begins to feel acceptable. And this change happens so quietly that, by the time you notice it, it has already taken root. This is why the influence of companionship is so powerful. The heart reflects what it is closest to. It absorbs tone, behavior, priorities, even unspoken attitudes. If you walk alongside people who are moving toward Allah, even if you struggle at times, their direction will influence yours. But if you walk alongside people who are consumed by the distractions of this world, their pace will begin to affect you as well, no matter how strongly you believe you can remain unchanged. At first, it feels harmless. You laugh more. You feel relaxed. You tell yourself you are simply enjoying life, that there is nothing wrong with taking things easy. But enjoyment that distances you from the one who gave you life is not true enjoyment. It feels light in the moment, but leaves behind a deeper emptiness. It is something that slowly changes your heart without you realizing it. There are people who reach a point where they feel disconnected from everything that once gave them peace. Their prayers feel empty. The words of the Quran no longer move them. Their hearts feel heavy instead of soft. And when they reflect on how they reached that point, it rarely begins with a major decision. It begins with small influences, the company they kept, the voices they listened to, the people they gave their time and attention to repeatedly. This process is not accidental. It is subtle and gradual by design. A person does not lose their connection overnight. It happens step by step. Small delays, small compromises, small shifts in priorities. Each one seems insignificant on its own, but together they create distance. And over time, that distance becomes difficult to reverse. Often, the people connected to this change do not intend harm. They may care about you. They may want your happiness. They may believe they are helping you enjoy life, helping you feel less pressure. Their intentions may be sincere, but sincerity does not always equal benefit. A person can mean well and still influence you in a way that harms your connection with Allah. If someone's presence consistently leads you to delay what you once prioritized, if being around them makes you remember Allah less, if their influence makes what is wrong feel easier to accept, then that influence is not neutral. It is shaping you quietly but powerfully. There is a difficult reality in this. Sometimes maintaining closeness with someone can cost you something far more valuable than the relationship itself. Sometimes protecting your heart requires distance, even when there is no clear conflict, even when there is no obvious wrongdoing. It is not about rejecting them as people. It is about recognizing what their presence is doing to your soul. This decision is not easy. It can feel isolating. It can create a sense of loss. It can make you question yourself. But that discomfort is temporary, because when something is left for the sake of Allah, it is never truly lost. It is replaced with something better, better peace, better clarity, better company, better connection. Looking at your circle becomes necessary at this point. Not with judgment, not with arrogance, but with honesty. Some people increase your love for Allah simply by being around them. They remind you of what matters. They help you stay consistent. They make goodness feel easier. Others, even without intending to create distance, they make you delay. They make you forget. They make what is harmful feel less serious. This does not mean you respond with anger or harshness. You can still show kindness. You can still wish well for them. But you also recognize that your responsibility toward your own soul comes first. Because in the end, your journey is yours alone. There will come a moment when you stand before Allah without anyone beside you. No companions to share your choices. No voices to explain your decisions. No one to carry your responsibility. And in that moment, what will matter is not who you were close to, but how those relationships shaped your heart. The most valuable companions will be those who helped you remain firm. Those who reminded you when you forgot. Those who encouraged you when you felt weak. Those who guided you toward what was right, even when it was difficult. There is a version of you that reflects the beauty of guidance. A version that is gentle in speech, patient in difficulty, quick to forgive, slow to anger, humble in success, kind without expectation. That version of you is not random. It is the result of effort, choices, and the mercy of Allah. But it is also influenced by what surrounds you. Because just as there are people who nurture that version of you, there are others who awaken traits you thought you had left behind. You may find yourself becoming more impatient, more critical, more reactive in certain company. You may speak in ways you later regret. You may engage in conversations that go against your values. You may adopt attitudes that do not reflect who you truly want to be. This does not always come from weakness. It often comes from influence. The heart mirrors what it is exposed to. The more time you spend in a certain environment, the more it shapes you, whether you are aware of it or not. The most dangerous influence is the one that does not feel dangerous, the one that feels normal, the one that introduces small changes that seem insignificant, a joke at someone else's expense, a moment of speaking without kindness, a suggestion to hold on to anger instead of letting it go. Small seeds planted over time, seeds of arrogance, impatience, bitterness. And seeds do not remain still, they grow, especially when they are repeatedly reinforced. Over time, you may notice changes within yourself that feel unfamiliar. Your words may become sharper. Your patience may become thinner. Your perspective may become more negative. You may begin to focus more on faults than on goodness, and it may leave you wondering how you became this version of yourself. But these changes are rarely sudden. They are the result of what has been consistently allowed into your life. There is a deep sense of regret described for those who realize too late the impact of their companions. Not regret over a single moment, but over a gradual journey away from what once brought them closer to Allah. A realization that the distance did not happen all at once, but step by step, choice by choice, influence by influence. Sometimes, however, that realization comes early. You begin to notice the changes before they become permanent. You feel heavier after certain interactions. You feel less patient, less focused, less connected. Your worship feels different. Your heart feels less soft. That awareness is not a burden. It is a gift. It is a form of guidance that allows you to respond before the distance becomes too great. Responding does not require harshness or rejection. It requires awareness and action. It means valuing your soul enough to protect it. It means recognizing that if someone's presence consistently feeds your worst traits, it will inevitably weaken the best parts of you. Your heart is like a garden. Within it are beautiful qualities, patience, mercy, humility, gratitude. But within it also exists the potential for harmful traits, anger, pride, envy, harshness. Every person you allow into your life influences which of these grows stronger. Some people nurture what is good within you without even trying. Others, knowingly or unknowingly, strengthen what harms you. And over time, whatever is nurtured is what will grow. Weeds do not ask for permission before they grow. They do not wait for the right conditions or the right timing. They spread quickly, quietly, and once they take hold, they begin to choke everything around them. They do not announce their presence loudly. They blend in at first, small and unnoticeable, until one day they have covered more ground than the flowers you once carefully nurtured. This is the nature of what is harmful. It rarely begins in a way that alarms you. It begins in a way that feels manageable, even harmless, until it becomes something that is difficult to remove. This is why those who understand the reality of the heart become cautious about what they allow into it. Not because they believe they are superior, not because they look down on others, but because they understand that the heart is not a place where things remain unchanged. Whatever enters it begins to grow. Whatever is repeated begins to take root. Whatever is tolerated begins to feel normal. If you sit among people who constantly criticize, who focus on what is wrong in others, who find comfort in pointing out flaws, you may not agree with them at first. You may even feel uncomfortable in the beginning. But over time, something begins to shift. You start noticing what they notice. You begin to speak in similar ways. Words once felt harsh begin to feel acceptable. Judgment begins to replace compassion. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you find that criticism flows from your own tongue with ease. On the other hand, when you place yourself among people who carry gentleness, who speak with care, who choose mercy even when they have the right to be harsh, you begin to change in ways that feel natural and effortless. Your tone softens. Your patience increases. Your reactions become more measured. You begin to reflect before you respond. You begin to understand before you judge. This transformation does not require force. It happens because the heart adapts to what surrounds it. Human beings are deeply influenced by their environments. This influence does not always happen consciously. It is subtle, gradual, and often unnoticed. You may believe you are simply spending time with certain people without being affected by them. You may tell yourself that you are strong enough to remain unchanged, that you know your values and will hold on to them regardless of who you are around. But the truth is, consistency shapes the heart. Repetition shapes behavior. Exposure shapes identity. The danger lies in how invisible this process is. You do not wake up one day and suddenly become a different person. You become different through small moments, repeated over time. A conversation here, a shared attitude there, a habit that forms quietly, a reaction that changes slightly. These small shifts accumulate until they redefine who you are becoming. Because of this, protecting your inner self sometimes requires changing your outer circumstances. It does not always mean cutting ties in a dramatic or painful way. It can be much more subtle. It can mean creating space where there was once constant presence. It can mean choosing not to engage in certain discussions. It can mean stepping back from environments that bring out parts of you that you are trying to overcome. It can look like declining invitations that you know will place you in situations where your values feel weaker. It can look like limiting how deeply you involve yourself in certain relationships. It can look like choosing silence when speaking would lead you toward something harmful. These choices may feel uncomfortable at first. They may feel isolating, but they are acts of protection, not rejection. At the same time, it means intentionally seeking out people who elevate you, not those who make you feel comfortable in your weaknesses, but those who gently encourage your strengths. People who remind you to slow down when anger begins to rise. People who encourage you to let go when pride tries to hold on. People who guide you back to patience, forgiveness, and humility, not through force, but through example. There is a version of you that reflects the beauty of guidance. A version that is calm in moments of tension, kind in moments of difficulty, patient when tested, and sincere in intention. That version of you is not accidental. It has been shaped through effort, through struggle, through moments where you chose what was right over what was easy. And that version of you deserves to be protected. It is easy to lose that version when you are surrounded by influences that pull you in the opposite direction. When harshness becomes common, when negativity becomes normal, when impatience is encouraged, it becomes harder to hold on to what is good within you. Over time, you may find yourself reacting in ways that do not feel like you, speaking in ways you later regret, thinking in ways that feel unfamiliar. This does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. It means your environment is shaping you, whether you intend it to or not. That is why it is dangerous to trade your better self for the sake of comfort or belonging. To remain in spaces that diminish you simply because leaving feels difficult. To accept influences that harm you simply because they come from people you care about. Because in doing so, you slowly lose something far more valuable than the connection you are trying to maintain. There will come a moment when none of those connections will matter in the way they once did. A moment where you stand alone, without the voices, without the presence, without the influence of others. In that moment, what will remain is who you became, your character, your actions, your choices. And that is why protecting the version of yourself that aligns with what is right is not optional. It is necessary. It is an act of responsibility toward your own soul. Guard that version of yourself carefully. Do not expose it to environments that weaken it. Do not allow it to be reshaped by influences that do not align with what you know is right. And if protecting it requires distance, then distance becomes a form of strength, not loss. Walking away does not have to be filled with anger. It does not have to come with resentment or harshness. It can be done with dignity, with calmness, with a sincere intention to protect what has been entrusted to you. It can be accompanied by hope, by prayer, by trust that what is being left behind will be replaced with something better. Because nothing that is left for the sake of Allah is ever truly lost. What is given up with sincerity is returned in a way that is greater, even if it takes time to see it. There are also moments when guidance does not come from within your heart, but from what unfolds around you repeatedly. Patterns begin to form. Situations repeat themselves in ways that are difficult to ignore. Paths that you try to walk become blocked again and again, no matter how much effort you put in. You make plans, but they do not come together. You try again, thinking perhaps it was timing, but something interrupts the process once more. You adjust your approach, believing that maybe you need to try harder, be more careful, be more persistent. Yet the outcome remains unchanged. The door does not open. The path does not clear. At first, it is easy to blame circumstances. Then it begins to feel like misfortune. Then it starts to feel personal, as though you are not doing enough, not trying hard enough, not deserving enough. But there are times when what appears to be repeated failure is actually a form of protection. Not every path that you desire is meant for you. Not every connection you try to build is meant to last. Not every door that remains closed is a loss. Sometimes, the refusal of a path to open is itself a message. It is difficult to accept this because desire can be strong. You may feel certain that what you are pursuing is right for you. You may have invested time, emotion, effort. You may have hoped for a specific outcome. And when that outcome does not come, it can feel confusing, even painful. But there is a reality beyond what you can see in the present moment. There are things that exist beyond your understanding, intentions that are hidden, consequences that are not yet visible, paths that lead to places you cannot yet imagine. And sometimes, being prevented from moving forward is not a denial. It is protection from what lies ahead. Repeated obstacles are not always meant to be overcome. Sometimes they are meant to be understood. When something resists you once, it may be coincidence. When it resists you twice, it may still be circumstance. But when it resists you again and again, it begins to carry meaning. It becomes a pattern. And patterns are not random. There are countless moments in life where what seemed like failure later revealed itself as mercy. Situations that did not work out, connections that fell apart, plans that never materialized. All of them later understood as protection from something that would have caused harm. In the moment, however, that clarity is not always available. In the moment, it feels like loss. It feels like confusion. It feels like standing in a place where nothing is working the way you expected. But within that moment, there is an opportunity to trust, to accept that not everything needs to be understood immediately, to recognize that there is wisdom in what is unfolding, even if it is hidden from you. You may have asked for something sincerely. You may have hoped for it deeply. But the response to that hope is not always immediate fulfillment. Sometimes it is delay. Sometimes it is redirection. Sometimes it is protection from something you cannot yet see. And that protection does not always feel comforting. It can feel like rejection. It can feel like being held back. It can feel like doors closing when you are trying so hard to open them. But in reality, it is care. It is a form of mercy that prevents you from stepping into something that would have taken more from you than it would have given. There are those who push through every obstacle, who force their way into paths that were not meant for them, only to find pain waiting on the other side, regret that lingers, consequences that take years to heal from. And in those moments, the realization comes too late. A wish forms, a wish that the signs had been taken seriously, that the resistance had been respected, that the repeated obstacles had been seen as guidance instead of something to fight against. When obstacles appear repeatedly, especially in connection with a person or a path, they are not always there to test your persistence. Sometimes they are there to redirect you, to save you from becoming deeply attached to something that would not bring you peace. There may be things you do not see right now. There may be aspects of that path or that person that are hidden from you. There may be consequences that have not yet revealed themselves. And that is why trust becomes essential. Trust that what is meant for you will not require you to force it into existence. Trust that what is good for you will come with clarity, not constant confusion. Trust that what is aligned for you will not repeatedly disturb your peace. There will come a time when understanding replaces confusion, when you look back and feel grateful that certain things did not work out, when you recognize that what you once saw as loss was actually protection, when you realize that what was withheld was not meant for you, and what was delayed was being replaced with something better. Until that moment arrives, patience becomes your strength, trust becomes your foundation, and the belief that Allah's wisdom is greater than your own understanding becomes the light that guides you through what you cannot yet see.